Stop. Before you promise, "I'll do whatever it takes to make this work," hear this. Right now, somewhere in your life, you are staying where you are not respected. You're staying in a job that drains you, with a boss who would replace you in a week. You're staying in a relationship where you're begging to be chosen. You're staying in a friend group that only calls when they need something. And the cruel part? The person with the most power in that situation is not the one who tries the hardest, it's the one who can walk away. Why is it always the one who cares less that calls the shots? Why does the partner who's not afraid to leave control the dynamic? Why does the employee who's ready to quit negotiate a higher salary than the one who's grateful to be here? Why does the friend who disappears easily get chased while you have to explain yourself if you take one day to reply? You know why, because power lives with the person who doesn't need to stay. Here's the dangerous truth: life is rigged in favor of those who can exit. Not the loudest, not the nicest, not the most loyal. The ones who can calmly, quietly, cleanly walk away from anything that stops serving their standards. That is the exit advantage. And if you don't have it, you are negotiating your entire existence from a place of fear. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He watched princes get destroyed because they clung to alliances they should have abandoned, tolerated chaos they should have crushed, and feared short-term conflict more than long-term ruin. He didn't write for people who wanted to feel good, he wrote for people who wanted to survive. That's what tonight is for. In this series, you're going to learn how to build walk-away power in every area of your life. How to design your life so no job, no person, no city, no group owns you. How to keep your emotions from chaining you to situations that are clearly killing you. And how to leave in a way that doesn't look like drama. It looks like destiny. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about ending the version of you that begs to stay where you're clearly not valued. Let's start with the first ruthless lesson. They don't respect your effort, they respect your exit. You were raised on never quit, like quitting is the ultimate sin. So you stay. You work late. You apologize first. You compromise your limits. You send the double text. They won't. Because effort without options looks like desperation. And desperation is not rewarded, it's used. Watch how people behave when they feel you can't leave. The partner slacks off emotionally because they know you'll always come back. The friend cancels on you last minute because in their mind, you'll just understand. You've turned yourself into emotional furniture. Always there, rarely noticed, never feared. Here's the shift. Someone who can leave is read as valuable. Someone who can't is read as furniture. That's why the same person can go from being taken for granted in one relationship to being worshipped in the next. Nothing magical happened. They just started acting like their presence was a choice, not a favor. People don't see your soul. They see your stance. If you appear to be someone who will swallow anything to stay, that's all they need to know. They don't feel your struggle, they feel your compliance. So you begin by changing the appearance before anything else. You don't have to be ready to leave tomorrow, but you stop acting like you die if this job, this person, this group disappears. You slow your replies. You stop over-explaining every decision. You stop announcing, "I'm not going anywhere," like it's romantic. You move like someone whose life is bigger than this one scene, because it is. The real exit advantage has two layers, internal and external. Internal is psychological, believing you are allowed to leave. External is practical, building the skills, money, and network that make leaving possible. Most people get stuck because they do one without the other, without any savings, without any plan. Or they quietly stack money and skills but never update the belief that they're allowed to walk. You need both, inside and backup. Read that again. When you build someone else's power to the point that you depend on them, you are building the throne that can exile you. Look at your life. Where have you done this? Maybe you poured yourself into a company, gave them your ideas, your energy, your loyalty, and now the idea of leaving gives you anxiety because everything you know is inside those walls. Maybe you made one person your entire emotional universe. You distanced from friends, ignored your hobbies, shrank your world down to their attention. And now the idea of losing them feels like losing oxygen. That's exactly what Machiavelli warned about. When you are the cause of another becoming powerful over you, financially, emotionally, socially, you are setting yourself up to be discarded. Not because people are evil, but because power doesn't like reminders of who helped build it. And power definitely doesn't like people who can't leave. The exit advantage is your antidote. It says, never build a life where one yes or no from someone else can end you. Don't give a company that kind of leverage over your survival. Don't give a partner that kind of leverage over your identity. Don't give a city or a friend group that kind of leverage over your happiness. You can love people, you can commit to projects, but you never let your entire sense of safety sit on one chair. Sit with that. You stay in a toxic job to avoid the war of being unemployed. You stay in a dead relationship to avoid the war of being alone. You stay quiet when someone disrespects you to avoid the war of confrontation. And what happens? The war still comes, just later, and on worse terms. You don't avoid the breakup, you just delay it until your self-worth is in ruins. You don't avoid leaving the job, you just wait until they fire you, or your mental health collapses. You don't avoid the fight, you just swallow it until it explodes in a way that makes you look crazy. Every time you tolerate disorder to avoid war, you are just giving the other side time to fortify. They get more comfortable, you get more tired, your bargaining position gets weaker. The ruthlessly smart person flips this. They choose a smaller war now so they don't have to fight a bigger one later. That's what walking away really is. It's not drama, it's not overreaction, it's a strategic strike. You end what is clearly unsustainable while you still have strength, dignity, and options, before the situation rots into something that destroys you. Look at the areas of your life where you've let disorder persist. The friend who keeps crossing your boundaries, and you keep making excuses. The situationship that keeps dangling future talk while never moving. All of those are disorders you're tolerating to avoid war. The exit advantage whispers a different strategy. Don't negotiate a small infection for 10 years. Cut it early and heal. So how do you start building walk-away power in real life, not just in theory? You start with micro-exits. You don't ghost your life overnight. You practice leaving in small, controlled ways. You end the phone call when you're drained, not when it becomes unbearable. You say, "I'm heading out" from the gathering when you feel done, instead of waiting until everyone else decides. You don't respond to guilt-tripping messages at midnight. You respond calmly the next day, if at all. These small moves do two things at once. They retrain your nervous system to realize nothing exploded when I left, and they send new information to the people around you. You are no longer the person who stays until everyone else is satisfied. You are the person who leaves when you decide your line has been reached. At the same time, you're building external exits. That means paying down debt, learning new skills, building side income, reconnecting with people outside your current bubble. You don't wait until you're fired to update your resume. You don't wait until your relationship is rotten to rebuild your social life. You don't wait until your parents are done yelling to move out mentally. You prepare quietly. That preparation is not disloyalty, it's self-defense. You'll notice something strange once you start doing this. The more you can walk away, the less you actually need to. Negotiations get easier. Your boss starts asking instead of dumping. Your partner leans in more. Why? Because they can feel it, even if you never say it. You are no longer trapped. You have exits. You have options. You have a self that exists outside of them. People treat you differently when they subconsciously understand that if they push too far, they will lose you. Not because you're threatening, not because you're manipulative, but because you genuinely have somewhere else to go. That's the exit advantage in action. It's not a speech, it's an energy. It's how you walk, how you answer, how quickly you recover when someone tries to play you. Part 1 is about waking up to this basic reality. Your ability to leave is the hidden multiplier on every interaction in your life. Without it, you are negotiating from the floor. With it, you stop begging for crumbs and start calmly choosing tables. In the next part, we'll go deeper into tactics, how to emotionally detach while you're still in the situation, how to recognize the exact moment to leave, and how to exit in a way that upgrades your reputation instead of burning it. For now, let this sink in. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to choose a smaller conflict now to avoid a bigger war later. You are allowed to stop being the cause of everyone else's power while your own life stays on hold. You may not be ready to leave yet, but tonight, something more important happened. You stopped believing that staying, no matter what, makes you strong. You don't get power just because you finally realize you're being used. That's the painful illusion a lot of people live in. No. Awareness is step 1. Power comes when you change how you move. And with walk-away power, that starts long before you actually walk. The real exit begins in your mind, in your calendar, in the invisible lines nobody else can see yet. By the time your feet leave, the decision has already been living inside you for weeks. So let's get brutally practical. You don't have to pack a bag tonight. You do have to stop living like staying is your only option. The first move is what I call the mental exit. Before you leave externally, you unplug internally. That means you stop letting this job, this person, this group define your entire weather. You stop checking your phone like their message is oxygen. You stop replaying their reactions in your head on a loop. Instead, you start building a small, private world they don't own. You read what interests you, not just what helps you survive. You reconnect with people who knew you before this identity. You take walks and let your brain remember what silence feels like. Detachment is not disrespect, it's preparation. You're creating breathing room so you can see clearly. Right now, your nervous system is addicted to the highs and lows of this situation. It keeps you hooked with hope, fear, guilt, and tiny rewards. You can't make a clean exit decision when you're chemically drunk on that cycle. So, you sober up. You pull your attention back inch by inch. You stop checking their mood like the stock market. You stop obsessing over their approval like it's a paycheck. You become a little more boring, a little more quiet, a little more unavailable, and a lot more sane. Now, you add something Machiavelli would absolutely approve of: ruthless preparation. Translation: yes, luck is real, timing is real, but about half of what happens to you is in your hands. Walk-away power lives entirely in that half. You don't control when the company downsizes, but you control whether you've been quietly building skills, contacts, and savings. You don't control when someone decides to cheat, ghost, or leave, but you control whether your entire identity was sitting inside that one relationship like a tenant with no lease. So you start governing your half. Financially, you chip at any debt you can. You build even a tiny emergency fund, not for some vague future, but for the specific purpose of making your exit optional instead of catastrophic. You update your CV. You take a course. You learn how to make money in more than one way. Different energy. One sentence chains you. The other one gives you a spine. Socially, you widen your orbit. You go to that event you've been postponing. You join the group, the club, The whatever that has nothing to do with your current job or relationship, not as a rebound, as infrastructure. Here's a hard pill. Some of you are scared to build exits because you're secretly afraid you will use them. You know that if you get enough money, enough self-respect, enough options, the illusion you're clinging to won't hold. That's why you procrastinate. Confusion is sometimes just a costume for fear. You're not confused. You're scared of who you'll become once leaving becomes truly possible. Forget cities, think patterns. If you take control of a situation that's used to owning you and you don't fully end its power over you, it will destroy you later. You tell your partner, "I'm not okay with this," but you still stay, sleep with them, and act like nothing happened. You announce to your friends, "I'm done being taken for granted," and then you show up again the second they call. That's what not destroying the old city looks like. You change the title, but not the rules. And the old rules? They come back and eat you. So when you're preparing to exit, you have to decide what gets completely cut. Not punished, cut. Maybe it's financial dependence on one person. Maybe it's sharing personal details with people who've proven they weaponize them. If you don't fully take away what used to feed on you, it will regroup. The city will revolt. The pattern will return. There are 3 signals that, together, are almost never wrong. First signal, repeated disrespect after clear communication. Not one mistake, not one bad day, a pattern. You calmly explained what you can't accept. They nodded, maybe even apologized. Then, nothing changed. Or worse, they got smarter about how they do it. That's who they are when you're not ready to walk. Second signal, your self-respect is shrinking faster than your benefits are growing. You're gaining money, status, or comfort, but losing sleep, losing confidence, losing the ability to look yourself in the mirror without flinching. You wake up dreading your own life. That's not a season, that's a cage. Third signal, your future self wouldn't thank you for staying. Picture yourself 5 years ahead, watching a movie of your current situation. Are they proud you fought for this? Or are they screaming at the screen, "Leave already"? If the older, wiser version of you is begging you to go, listen. They're the only person in this story who's actually seen how it ends. Once those 3 signals line up, staying is no longer loyalty, it's self-betrayal. And there is nothing noble about that. But here's the twist. A powerful exit is not loud. It's not a speech. It's not a 3,000-word text. It's not a screaming match in the office hallway. The more you explain, the more you invite them to negotiate your decision. The more you perform your pain, the more they think they can soothe you into staying. Leaving is an injury to the system that benefited from you. Do it all at once. One clear conversation. One resignation email. One move-out date. Not 6 trial separations and a shared Netflix password. Not, "I might leave, I just need you to." Either leave or don't, but stop using maybe as a drug to numb the fear. You don't have to be cruel, you have to be clean. This no longer works for me. I'm grateful for what I learned here. Period. When you leave with a conditional, you haven't left. You're still standing in the doorway, hoping. The exit advantage is shutting the door without needing them to chase you. Practically, a strong exit has 3 phases: contraction, communication, completion. Contraction, you slowly pull your energy back before the announcement. You invest less emotionally. You stop overfunctioning. You give what's required, nothing more. This protects you from being sucked back in by last-minute love bombing or crisis. Communication, you say it once, clearly. In person if it's safe. In writing if it's not. You don't list every grievance since 2015. You name the pattern, you name your decision, you don't argue about their version of events. They can keep their story. You'll keep your life. Completion, you tie off any practical loose ends as quickly as possible. You return keys, collect your things, transfer documents, block where needed. You don't linger in the wreckage. You don't keep checking their socials. You don't hover in the group chat. Completion is what turns a dramatic exit into a definitive one. They might even call you selfish for leaving. Let them. Machiavelli would simply shrug and remind you, people judge with their eyes, not their hearts. They're not inside your chest, your constant dread, your slow dying. They see what you appear to be, someone who finally chose themselves. And secretly, most of them wish they had the courage to do the same. Part 2 is about building that courage into something real: mental exits, financial exits, emotional exits. In the final part, you'll learn how to use walk-away power not just to escape bad situations, but to negotiate better ones. How to become the person whose presence is valuable precisely because it's never trapped. And how to live in such a way that when you do leave, the room feels it long after the door closes behind you. You've prepared your exits. You've pulled your energy back. That's the turning point. But the exit advantage isn't just about escaping bad situations. That's step 1. The real power is what happens next, when your ability to walk away starts changing how you negotiate, how you relate, how you exist in every room, without you even mentioning it. Here's the shift most people never make. They use walk-away power as a last resort, a nuclear button. You're going to use it as a baseline, a quiet thing you always carry. Other people bring their resumes, their charm, their excuses. Not threatened, not screamed, not carved into your forehead, just true. When that truth lives in your bones, your behavior changes before your words do. You stop chasing closure from people who showed you in action exactly who they are. You stop needing every conversation to end with mutual understanding. But here's the part nobody warns you about. The moment you start living like this, you're not just changing decisions, you're starting a revolution in your own life. And revolutions are messy. Machiavelli knew exactly how brutal that first phase is. Your new order of things is simple. You're no longer staying by default. You're no longer available by default. You're no longer loyal by default. You are chosen by you first, and everything else is negotiable. Is that difficult to carry out? Absolutely. Doubtful of success? Dangerous to handle? Definitely. Because the people who benefited from the old you will push back. They'll call you selfish for saying no. They'll call you cold for leaving the group chat on read. They'll say, you've changed. And they're right. You have changed. You went from being atmosphere to being a door. From something that's just there to something that has to be opened on your terms. That's terrifying to people who were used to breezing in and out of your life whenever they felt like it. So how do you use walk-away power without turning into a cartoon villain? You start by rewriting one core belief. Staying is not automatically good, and leaving is not automatically bad. Staying in a job that kills your health is not loyalty, it's self-destruction. Staying in a relationship that erodes your self-respect is not love, it's addiction. Staying in a friend group that mocks your growth is not keeping it real, it's choosing a smaller version of yourself so they don't feel insecure. If your goal is to be seen as good by everyone, you will suffer. Because everyone includes people who use, lie, manipulate, and drain. Sooner or later, your goodness will require you to say no, to disappoint, to walk away while they're still mid-speech, to let someone think you're the villain in their story rather than keep bleeding to remain their hero. That's the tax of exit power. You must surrender your addiction to being universally liked. You care. You just don't care more about their comfort than your own survival. You're finally willing to be misunderstood in the short term to avoid being destroyed in the long term. Here's what that looks like in real life. Your boss offers you a promotion with a small salary bump but double the responsibility. Old you hears, "I'm chosen." So you say, "I'm honored. This level of responsibility should sit in the XY range." You didn't threaten to quit. You just quietly made it obvious that your future doesn't depend on this one shiny offer. You are willing to walk away from more for the sake of what's fair. New you exits the room the second the conversation turns into tearing someone down. You don't announce it, you don't preach, you just stand up and go. Next time, they'll think twice before assuming you'll sit there and soak it in. Old romantic you keeps explaining your worth to someone who clearly doesn't see it. New you hears, "I'm not ready for something serious," and instead of taking it as a challenge to prove yourself, you take it as data. Thank you for being honest. And then you actually move. Block if needed. Distance, definitely. You don't hover in their DMs waiting for them to change their mind. Your exit is the change. This is the part where reputation enters the game, because walkaway power doesn't just change individual moments, it builds a myth about you. You think that's just talk? It's not. It's social armor. It travels into rooms you haven't entered yet. Machiavelli knew how strongly people are influenced by what they think you are, not just what you are. If the appearance you give off is, "I'll tolerate anything as long as you don't leave me," that's reality for most people, even if inside you're screaming for respect. If the appearance you give off is, "I'd rather be alone than disrespected," that's reality too. You don't control their hearts. You do control the pattern they see. So your job isn't to explain your soul to everybody. Your job is to behave in a way that makes one thing appear consistently true. You are never trapped. You might choose to stay, you might choose to fight for something, but it is always a choice, not a prison. You show that by how quickly you say no, how rarely you chase, how calmly you recover from loss. Want to negotiate from strength? You don't need fancy tactics. That's it. That's the entire backbone. You walk into the salary talk knowing you can survive if they say no. You walk into the breakup knowing it might hurt like hell, but it won't kill you. You walk into family conflict knowing you can love them deeply without letting them own your adulthood. From that place, your words sound different. You stop begging for permission and start handing out information. You're not asking them what your life should be, you're telling them what your life is going to be, with or without their approval. This doesn't mean you slam every door. It means you decide which doors can close without you losing yourself. Walkaway power is selective. You don't walk away from growth just because it's uncomfortable. You walk away from disrespect that stays after you addressed it. You don't walk away from every hard conversation. You walk away from conversations that never lead anywhere except back to the same manipulation. Advanced move? You almost never talk about your exit. You let people feel it when it happens. Threats are cheap. "If this happens again, I'm leaving," said 20 times is just theater. Say it once, maybe. After that, either it changes or you go. Quietly. No live stream, no cryptic quotes, just absence. That silence will say more than any speech. So where does this leave you? Standing in front of the same life with a completely different posture. The same job maybe? The same relationship? For now, the same city. But a different spine. You're no longer the person who signs up to be owned. You're not the one rehearsing monologues in your head for someone who has already shown they don't care. You're not the one who thinks endurance is always a virtue. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just fear dressed up as loyalty. You're becoming someone else entirely. The person who invests in themselves first so they never have to beg for escape. The person who can love deeply and still walk away if that love is used as a weapon. The person whose presence is felt in any room, not because they're loud, but because everyone senses, consciously or not, that this is a person with options. Here's your recap in plain language. You learned that effort without the ability to exit looks like desperation. You learned that letting disorder continue to avoid a war only makes the war worse when it finally comes. You learned to do the mental exit first. pulling back your attention, your identity, your obsession. You learn to prepare in silence. Money, skills, relationships outside the cage. You learn to spot the moment when staying becomes self-betrayal, repeated disrespect, shrinking self-respect, a future self begging you to leave. You learn to exit cleanly, contraction, communication, completion, without turning it into a soap opera. You learn to live in a way that makes it appear true, and therefore become true, that you are never trapped. Now the choice is brutally simple. You can close this and go back to being the one who stays no matter what, the one who lets people talk them into circles, the one who needs everyone to see them as good, even if that goodness is slowly killing them. Or you can draw a line tonight. You can decide that from this point on, you will build exits in every area of your life. You will stop feeding systems that starve you. You will pick smaller wars now to avoid the catastrophic one later. You will walk away. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but when the line is crossed and the pattern is clear, you will go. Not as a tantrum, as a decision. If you're done staying where you're clearly not respected, tap like. If you're ready to become the kind of person they can't corner, can't guilt, and can't quietly own, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what comes next. Drop a comment with "Exit Advantage" so I know you're not just entertained, you're actually stepping out of the cages you built around yourself. You and I both know it is, because this isn't self-help, this is strategy. This is war, and you didn't just walk away, you turned your ability to leave into a weapon.